clearly I'm very partial towards our state, but Virginia's always unique. Virginians take the politics seriously, conscientiously, they study it. They just don't pin the ribbon on the donkey, you know, or the elephant. They think it through. The Congress always quietly admires the Virginia delegation. I never really had anyone in my 30 years in Congress, from the House, of course, or the Senate, that I didn't feel very comfortable with and that I could share thoughts with and have a very civil relationship. That's not true in other states. Boy, I've seen two senators come from the state and they're like sand in the gearbox grinding all the time. We always got along. Commonwealth is unique in that respect. And I'll never forget in my first campaign with a wonderful man, Andy Miller. I still see him. He was Attorney General of Virginia. And one day he stood up in a debate and he shook his finger at me and he said, "I am the man you should vote for. I am the man to be senator because I was born in Virginia." So I'm sitting there, what do I say? So I got up and I said, you know, folks, I had very little to say about where I was born. But I had everything to say about where I went to school. And I went to Washington and Lee University, my father's university. I went to Mr. Jefferson's university. And he went north to Princeton, and the audience just cracked up. When I just sat down this last time around to show you how Virginia works, I pondered whether I wanted to go for a sixth term. But I saw how a number of men, when they hit their 80s, just, and particularly the intensity of the requirements of the time of the Senate today, it's not fair. I'm in good health. I'm actively with my old law firm doing other things today, a lot of pro bono work. But I didn't want to have my last days in the Senate parallel some of the others I had seen. And I called them up at night before I went to Charlottesville and walked out on the rotunda steps and waved goodbye to Virginia and thanked them for all that they'd done for me for these 30 years.
What are you up to these days? We hear reports that you are a master gardener, that you are a classic painter. Is a new career at hand?
Now, all of that is inaccurate. I'm a muddy, sloppy gardener. I do enjoy it. My mother was an avid gardener, and she used to have me as forced labor in those days, but unfortunately it blossomed in later life, and I've always muddled around, and whatever homes I've been fortunate to have, and had a garden. As to the painting, my first wife was a very accomplished artist. As a matter of fact, my present wife is equally accomplished. And when we had children, we tuck them away to bed, and we found the best way to relax after those stressful twos and wild kids was to paint. And so I started painting 50 years ago. Unfortunately, the war on terrorism, and I say underline unfortunately, I don't think that has any clear definitive termination. I fear it will be with us in various levels of threat and harm for a very long time. You've got to remember, we, the United States, are the envy of the world. Our quality of life, the freedoms that we have, and other countries do not want their citizen to get too big a taste or a view of it, because they know that that same seeds of democracy can disrupt their control. And therefore, nations of the world that are envious of what we have, their governments or their control systems are trying to suppress their own citizens. And that's where you get the friction, and that's where you generate the terrorists. So I don't know in terms of the governance of Afghanistan what the future will be, but it is very important that we not permit that geographic area of the world to be the breeding ground for terrorists to go beyond Afghanistan to the far-flung parts of the world to wrought the terrorism like Osama bin Laden did. And I'm really quite concerned about the future of our country and the future of democracy and the future of freedom. There's a lot of unfortunate stresses in the world today to try and take freedom away from people who cherish it and love it so much, be it the United States, Western Europe, or wherever in the world.
So let's talk about accomplishments, and I think you have one you'd like to tell us about. That's
Oh,
Virginia focused.
That was blowing up the Embrey Dam. An old coffer dam was put in about 80 or 90 years ago, and then it was soon abandoned for the purposes for which it was erected. But it blocked all the natural migration from the Atlantic Ocean of fish that normally went up the Rappahannock River, one of the greatest freshwater streams in the world, I think, certainly in the United States. So it took 12 years, and going through the environmental ramifications, to get the Corps of Engineers the permit and the money to blow the dam up. We blew it up, and now the fish go all the way from the Atlantic Ocean to the shadows of the Blue Ridge Mountains. That's a major contribution.
And you've got one of
And
the
there's
first
one of the
fish.
fish right up there on that wall that I caught.
Right.
We got to get a larger voluntary force in public service. Everywhere I go, when I have an opportunity to talk to students, I say to them, of my modest career, I've enjoyed public service the most. Yes, I've practiced law and I've done other things, but it doesn't have to be, you have to be a member of Congress. It doesn't have to be a lifetime, like I guess I've made it, but at least carve out some time. Be on the local library board, the town council, work for the institutions of learning around, be on boards and groups that work not for pay, but to increase the quality of life of the community. Every citizen should commit to a period of his or her career to public service. I've done a lot of work in the intelligence field, in the national security field to help Great Britain. And then I did the work on the bicentennial. They were very proud of that. I was quite humbled. I had no idea. It just came quick, simple announcement from Buckingham Palace one day, conveyed by the British ambassador. I'm humbled by it. I guess my great-great-grandfathers and uncles, and certainly my mother, are proud, as am I, with a sense of humility.
I spoke to somebody this week who knows you very well, and this person said that they have never seen you as happy in your life as you are right now. Is that true? And if so, what's your secret?
Well, I think I've been a very lucky person throughout my life, beginning with two very strong parents. But I sure have been a lucky man as a consequence of so many people helping me and sort of being at the right place at the right time. Mm-hmm. I mean, I look out this window, I can see the Woodrow Wilson Bridge. It's probably the biggest piece of pork that was ever stolen in the history of the Congress. The existing bridge was falling down, and we got the money to build that lovely bridge that we all enjoy today. That's why I like this little house. It's up here where I can keep it in the corner of my eye.